I'm here sitting with Marcos, Chiluisa, and Peter Stromberg. My name is Joe Giamportone, and we're here in iHeart Studios in Manta, Ecuador, to discuss life as expat entrepreneurs, or just life in general. Here in Ecuador, there's, something that I believe heavily in is taking the good with the bad, the pros with the cons. And there's a lot of great and beautiful aspects to life here in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. But, nothing's perfect. And, there's a lot of negative as well, as there is anywhere you go in the world. And so, in recent times, we found that Ecuador has been, more put on the map for expat investors, expats who are looking to retire outside of their homeland, whether it's Canada, US, or countries in Europe. And Ecuador has become, increasingly popular among those groups in recent years. A tidbit of information that we talk about a lot with our clients in our real estate business is, since 2015, the the Global Retirement Index has ranked Ecuador in the top 5 countries in the world to retire to consistently every year since 2015. And so we can go over the reasons why, the good, but we've done that. We're here to talk about some recently negative press that's made its way all the way to one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious, financial news sources in the United States, the Wall Street Journal. And in that particular article, they literally, titled the article, "Ecuador was a retirement paradise for Americans. Then the drug gangs arrived." That's some scary shit, man. If you're fucking sitting in your house and you've been talking to your wife or your husband and your kids and your friends and your family about investing in Ecuador, and someone comes across this in the Wall Street Journal, because, generally speaking, it's those folks who are reading the Wall Street Journal, right? You're not making that investment right away. You're not leaping on a plane and scrambling down to Ecuador. So, that article, it's a long article. They talk about a lot of things that are, true but they take them out of context. They mm-hmm. sensationalize a lot of things, mm-hmm. and they sort of paint a picture and, spin a narrative that for us who are living here, it's not necessarily the way it is. And Peter's here with us today because he has some insights into the actual facts of the article. And I want to go tread lightly into that realm. Why don't we first talk a little bit about your life, Peter? What brought you to Ecuador? How long have you been here? Sure. Tell us that story. So before we get into all that, I think that it's best if my partner, Marcos, introduces himself a little, gives his little intro, because this is our first time doing this podcast. So go ahead, Marcos. Take it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Joe. Well, first of all, this has to be something that we share from first-hand experience. Everything we know. There is no hidden agenda here. What we want to address is what is happening here in Ecuador. But first of all, I want to say something. I started in this business serving expats back in 2010. And at that time, Ecuador was, for 3 years in a row, the first #1 place to retire in the world.
Wow.
Back since 2010.
I didn't know that.
So, it is a long history. And then there is some publications that they have some interest in other countries. Like before, I don't want to start any conspiracy idea, but we have Costa Rica, we have Panama, we have Colombia. They want to attract those investors towards those countries. But that's why we have invited today to my dear friend Peter Stromberg. I know him probably 11 years now. it has been a very rich experience for me, and I have learned a lot from him in terms of once he told me, and I have to share this because I every time I have my car dirty, I think about Peter. He said, I have my small car when I was starting the business. He said, shitty, dirty car, shitty, dirty lawyer. And that got me, and I try to never have my car that is no clean, is no in a good shape. So I have to say that about Peter, and that says a lot about the standards he has in life. Because for some people, they might not think that that's something that is very important, but for me, there was one of those comments, one of those advices that I received, and then I started like doing things in a different level. So, Peter, we have shared so many experiences. We have a very good story that we're going to talk later, what happened during the earthquake back in 2016. But to give a brief introduction about Peter, he's married to this wonderful woman, Maya. She's great, she's lovely, and she has been an anchor in his life. So a lot of recognition it goes to her because it has been quite a journey to be living in Ecuador. Being an expat, sometimes it's not easy. It's beautiful to live here in Ecuador, but there's sometimes where you miss your family, you miss your friends. But, well, you're in Ecuador, you make new friends. And what I want to say with this is like, Peter made the perfect transition from being an expat and becoming a truly Ecuadorian. He probably doesn't have a Ecuadorian passport, but I have seen what he does with his community back in Canoa, and it's just amazing. I have a lot of respect for him. That's why we have him today, because he has a lot of things to say about how it's life in Ecuador. For other people watching this, it's just like take notes and make sure that you have fun with us today. Thank you, and welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A little bit of my background. I came in 2008 on a kayaking trip with my beautiful wife, Maya. She wasn't on the kayaking trip. My buddies were on the kayaking trip, and we were going to do our honeymoon before my friends came for the kayaking part of the trip. And so we came to the coast. We flew into Manta. And to kind of give you a story about how far it's come, we came to Manta, and we flew from Quito to Manta. We get out of our airport, asked the taxi driver, no idea where to go. It brings us to this hotel. And we walk by.
Did you speak any Spanish?
No Spanish.
Okay.
And we walk by, going into the hotel, we walk by the security guard with a big gun. And I was like, I wonder if that's just how that is here. So we go up to the room and change. We want to go out to Monte. We go to leave, and the security guard's like, hey, where are you going? And we're like, we're going out. And he's like, you're not going out in this neighborhood.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, oh, really? And he's like, you sit right here. You can have some drinks right here. You can go over and buy some beers from that liquor store, then come right back. And we're like, holy shit. Let's get out of here. So we did. The next morning we bounced and we went to Canoa, and we fell in love. The second day I was there, I was like, I'm moving here, and nobody would believe me. and then on vacation we ended up putting a down payment on a bar in Canoa and moved. Went home, figured out how to sell our American lives and quit our jobs and turn the cell phones off and all that kind of stuff, and then moved to the beach in August 26th of 2008.
That's my birthday.
Oh, wow.
August 26th.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's also our anniversary.
Big day. Yeah.
I'm married on my birthday.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so then we had a bar on the beach, and 28 years old, it was a pretty cool toy to have. Completely out of
For
control
sure.
at times. And, Carnival, we'd never really seen Carnival before, but that first one was pretty intense. Americans don't really party for 7 days straight.
No.
Like we might put like a 3-day festival
My closest
together.
was Mardi Gras. Experiencing Mardi Gras
Well,
was the
that's
closest thing.
right, yeah. So, but
that's only like 3 days.
to see those guys just rage it for 7 days straight, it's like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah, Ecuadorians, they know how to party.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
yeah.
keep it going. So that was cool. 7 years of that, and then we sold the bar, and then unfortunately there was a really devastating earthquake in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big reset button for Canoa and the coast in general. And for us personally, we just finished our construction in January, and the earthquake was in April. So we had opened and then closed again, and then it was basically 2 years of recovery.
Yeah.
From that, then we got back on our feet from the earthquake, and then pandemic.
The
coming.
pandemic.
Yeah. Then hit in the pandemic, and then so yeah, now we're scraping out of that, and then we hit into an unprecedented time in Ecuador with the war on drugs. That's apparently still going, even though it's failed in multiple different facets in multiple different ways. It's still going, and it is unprecedented. In the article in Wall Street Journal, there was some true stuff there, but there was also some certainly stuff that wasn't true, or stuff that was confusing or sensational, misleading, or what location it's actually happening in. And I've said this a couple times. It'd be similar to someone living in like northern Illinois in an agricultural town, and then writing an article in the Wall Street Journal about the crime in the south side of Chicago across the state. Like, it's not even relative to their existence or everyday life or reality, you know? So that was a bit strange to see that. But then it's also, you know, I think it's hard for North Americans, especially ones that haven't had the chance to live an expat life, to put themselves in the position of how fragile an economy can be. Like, when you think about the United States and the big juggernaut of Colorado tourism, you can't take that down.
Right.
But you could take down the fragile coastal tourism of Kanoa, which is a small up-and-coming beach town, 6,000 people that are recently just figuring out how to interact with tourists and to be a tourism town. And then, you know, you just get this pile on of negative news about Narcolandia, which I've never met a narco guy. 15 years, never met one in my life. You know, and if you're not dabbling in the darker streets of cocaine alleys, you're not going to see that.
Of course.
You know, and so, and further, I don't, you know, there was some, I was speaking with Meyer from San Clemente. He's been here longer than I have. He's been here 18 years. And he's like, we're not the targets as expats.
Right.
You know, that just brings a whole level of pain, you know, from an economic standpoint on these narcos that they don't want anyway, you know? So there was an incident in Montanita that was unfortunate for a couple of Argentinian girls about 4 years ago that happened. And before that, I don't remember an expat being attacked or anything that would warrant an article in the Wall Street Journal from an expat.
Right.
Well, mostly what I think, and you can correct me, Joe, is like in Ecuador, and every time that I go to speak outside of Ecuador, representing the country, it's just like people, they are always asking like, how is the crime, but not only here, in Colombia, in Mexico, in Panama, but here it's a matter of, it's a crime of opportunity. If you leave your bicycle outside in the park overnight, the next day you will come and you will not find it.
Yeah.
But it's just like organized crime against one specific person. That's something that it's very unusual. At least for the expats, I never heard something like that. And among Ecuadorians, I mean, if you are in the business, probably, but if you're not, there's nothing to worry about.
And even further, it's the city centers, right? Like, I've never gone to Guayaquil.
Really?
I have, but I never wanted. You know, Guayaquil has this reputation as a scary spot, and maybe rightfully so. And so you can take the sensationalism of being a port city in South America, which none of them are safe relative to, I mean, this Wall Street Journal author's opinion. Where is the safe spot in South America?
Right.
You tell me.
And
so,
in comparison to
comparison to what?
Exactly.
To the south side of Chicago,
Right.
to San Francisco,
To
to
New
Atlanta, to New York, to anywhere else. The world is a scary place right now.
Yeah, of course.
And if you look on the news, it sounds like Ecuador is burning down when 98% of Ecuador just wakes up and tries to put food on their table and provide a life for their kids. It's just business as usual. And so, I mean, you got to sell headlines, and I get it that they're in the business of selling news, but there also has to be some kind of ethics to take some responsibility and try to source out what's really going on under the ground versus just the person who's trying to be the loudest. And they're not, just because they're the loudest doesn't mean they're always the person that you should be listening to.
Yeah. Culturally, the loudest one right now is the one that everyone's listening to. But that's why we have to put things like this out onto the airwaves, sort of balance it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me share something that every time I share this, it surprises me, but how people they didn't know about these numbers. My parents are Ecuadorians. They were born in back in the 50s and 60s, and they were living in a. My mom especially, she was living in a rural low income community in the highlands. So back when she was a child, she remembered when all those gringos doctors, they came to the communities to perform surgeries. But also back in the 60s, when President Kennedy, he started his term, he created the Peace Corps Volunteers program.
Yep.
And they are ambassadors of the US. And when you see a white person here in Ecuador, you call them gringo. It's not prerogative a term. It is something like, it is easy to say for Ecuadorians and for people who speak Spanish. So every time they call someone gringo, is because it's white, blonde, blue eyes, green eyes. So
you'll know.
You'll know that that's a gringo, even if it's Ecuadorian. This looks like a gringo. So, but what is interesting here is Peace Corps volunteers. They came and they start working in rural communities, everywhere: education, English, agriculture, health. So back in the mind of the Ecuadorians, they associate having an expat, a gringo here. They're always coming to help. From grandparents, there are 3 generations now. Grandparents, parents, and now kids. Every time they see an expat, they see, wow, they're coming here for a good thing. They're coming here to help. So they associate that with all the expats living here. So whenever you're coming as an expat, you're always welcome to the country. No matter where you go, they always want to help you. If you don't speak the language, they try to, with signs or whatever
Hand
they can.
gestures, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you probably have experienced that when you first arrived here, because, back in 15 years ago, we're talking about 2008. 2008. Ecuador, it was a developing country at that time, but Ecuador is always welcoming for the expat community.
Yeah, the people here are amazing. The generosity of poor people across anywhere I've traveled has always been amazing, and then to see they're just hardy. It's, they're fishermen and agriculture, so they're working for a living off the dirt and out of the ocean. Those are the 2 hardest jobs probably by far, is farming and fishing. So it's just the kind of people that come out of that culture are just tough, salt of the earth people that work with their hands to make their money, and they don't have a lot, but they got enough, and they're never, they don't really, the amount of freedom that they have because they're not attached to money is amazing. And that was one of the things that was really attractive to me. Is I remember when I had my bar and I was talking to this guy, Mauricio, and he was my first bartender, and I knew his financial situation was a little bit dire because he had just had a new kid, and he was telling me how broke he was, and we got in an argument, and I just reflexively was gonna, like, you're fired, whatever, and he, no shits given, and just walked right out the door. And I knew he needed the money. As an American, I was like, I know you need this job, but he didn't need the money because food's cheap. They have big family systems here where you can go knock on an aunt and uncle's door for an almuerzo and dinner and that kind of stuff. So food, like the basic necessities, are covered just through the culture.
And a lot of the homes they live in, maybe not, luxurious, but passed down generationally.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not paying mortgages.
Yep, exactly. So the cost of living here can get pretty cheap, and that allows for an amount of freedom and just a stress-free lifestyle that isn't around anymore in the States.
I have a little statistic for you guys. It was something that I posted to the JAG Instagram when I first came here. Date on this post is April 27, 2018. I was here for 27 days. Estadísticas de uso de Internet, the statistics of Internet usage in Ecuador. In 2008, the percent of the population with Internet, 8%. 2017, 84%. So 9 years, 10 times, more than 10 times of a jump, of a leap in the percent of population with Internet access. This is home Internet access, you know? So that alone shows you that when you arrived, people were only connected in their inner circles.
Yeah, there was no bridge. And the road to Canoa was dirt. It was 12 hours from here to Quito.
Yep.
So, I mean, we came right pre-Correa. And you can say what you want about socialism, and I come from a very Republican background.
Yep.
I've seen socialism do some pretty cool things, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, roads, hospitals, just a general sense of self-esteem in the country.
Right.
Went from, you know, sandwiched in between Peru and Colombia to a country called Ecuador, and yes, this is us, and all you need is Ecuador campaign, the Super Bowl ad.
Yep.
You know, for the first time, Correa gave these guys something to be proud of. Now, to get into the internal politics and the background nefarious stuff that was
Good
happening,
with the bad.
I don't know and I don't care.
Right.
What I do know is that a lot of poor people were in a better position than they were before him.
Right.
And since I've been here after him, it's been worse for them as well. So
Right.
I don't know what it all was, and maybe it has something to do with the war on drugs. And maybe you have to work with some of these nefarious characters because at the end of the day, they're a part of the culture.
Well, here's my theory.
And nobody wants to talk about the demand side of things.
Wait,
You know,
right.
so-
Exactly. I was just getting to that. You just took the word right out of my mouth. First of all, why is there such a heavy need for drug trafficking? Because I'll tell you something right now. There is no drug epidemic here in Ecuador. You don't see people standing like zombies on the corners here.
No.
There's not 100,000 Ecuadorians going to die this year.
No.
There's 100,000 Americans that are going to have a fentanyl overdose this year.
Right. Opioid epidemic. I mean, Matthew Broderick just did a freaking Netflix special. Did you watch that thing about the opioid epidemic? The family that, you know, whatever.
No, I haven't.
The point of the story
I
is,
have to.
yeah, we know where the drugs are going, right? You and I have friends and family members who are either gone or in jail because of their addiction problem up north. And, you know, where did the drugs come from when the opioid epidemic, you know, where was the heroin coming from? Where were the opioids coming from? You know, Middle East. And why were we in the Middle East? Okay, get into that story. But the point of what I was bringing up, you kind of threw me off there because I went off on a tangent. But these narcos, like these folks who work in the drug trade, like you just said, they're part of the culture. We're not gonna eliminate them, right? But take note of the fact that there is no epidemic here. There is no, you know, mass, you know, onslaught of young people becoming, you know, addicted to the drugs. They're leaving the country, right? So these guys, in a lot of ways, or these people, in a lot of ways, are sort of forming a system that makes it very, very, like, even the youngest that I speak to here are anti-drug. And whereas, you know, up north, it's more like a party culture. And it's almost like a, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll is people aspire to have that in their life. So it's almost like it's created a sort of like a level of fear or respect around, you know, not becoming addicted to whatever substance is out there. And it's leaving the country. So in a lot of ways, it's protecting people here. You know, that's the other side of the coin that nobody really talks about. But you got to look at it that way. Yeah, there's the violence, but it's mostly internal. It's mostly, you know, only among those who are involved. You know, you very rarely have a, you know, collateral damage situation going on here, right? You know, but anyway.
Yeah, but also what is something that concerns me a lot about from the economic perspective. I have gave these numbers for the last probably 4 years. In Ecuador, we have more or less expat community living in Ecuador, near 40,000 expats. They are living in Cuenca, Cotacachi, Barra, Quito, Manta, Loja, Salinas, Playas, all over the country. So from what I have talked to my clients, they have you can live in Ecuador for $1,500 and you live
a month.
Great.
Yeah.
You are very, very happy. You're going to be very happy. You have money to pay the rent, to go out for dinner, to even to save sometimes. So if we multiply 1,500 times 40,000, that's something near $720 million coming to the local economy. When I'm talking to the local economy is to the taxi driver, to the cleaning lady, for the guy who's coming to help you to do some repairs in your house. And I'm just seeing here what are the main non-petroleum, non-oil exports of Ecuador. And first, we have the shrimp. Second, the banana. The shrimp is $5,000 million in exports. Banana is $3,000 million. And then we have the cacao, $817 million. And then we have fish, $289 million that Ecuador receives every year for exports in these items, in these commodities. But if we include here the expat economy, the expat money coming to the local economy, the expat business, if you want to call it like this, it gets $720 million into the local economy. So this
Annually.
is something annually, yes. So this is something that it can go double for the next year, or it can decrease after this Wall Street Journal article, because we have some person typing and the other side of the world without coming here to the country.
Yeah, the author of this article isn't even in Ecuador.
Without thinking that this is a lot of damage to the local economy.
Yeah.
And without knowing that you can walk in the streets. You have to take measures that, of course, you cannot walk in the street in the middle of the night.
Same thing in New York, man. Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. You know?
But it's just that that's the thing. That's not very responsible from someone who wrote the article and the people talking, because this is, I understand the concern, but at the same time, it is like, I don't know if it's 100% true, because I have clients and of course they are concerned about what is happening in the country, but still we have the food, we have the currency, we have the weather that is not going anywhere, but we have the good people of Ecuador that is going to take care of you here in the country. And that's the general sense for an expat living here in the country. So
right. There's something else to be said about the amount of pension dollars and Social Security checks that are leaving the United States, and how that affects the United States negatively. You know, if you watch any sort of news, left wing, right wing, centrist, whatever, there's a underlying theme these days of the population shrinkage. Right? In the United States, less and less people are able to afford to get married, less and less people are able to afford to have kids. Instead of having 2 or 3 kids, they're having 1 or 0. And you know, then you compound that with the lack of a proper path to citizenship for immigration. You don't have the sort of increase in population that has been going on or went on between, like, let's say the 50s and the 80s, right? That's why they called them the baby boomers. They were booming. They were 3 to 5 kids every single family, you know, living off one salary, stay-at-home moms. That system, that lifestyle is just gone. That doesn't exist for anyone who's making less than $600,000 a year right now. And, you know, do the numbers. That's like less than 10% of the population up there. less than 5%. Okay, so now take into consideration that, you know, periodicals like the Wall Street Journal, who are being read by the upper middle class and upper class of the country, who are considering, you know, hey, wait a minute, you know, for $1,500 a month, I can go live in Ecuador, where the climate is beautiful, the food is, you know, locally sourced, the people are beautiful, you know, it's a tranquil sort of lifestyle that the stress of, you know, the grind is non-existent, you know, and the biodiversity and just, you know, being up in the mountains, being down by the beach, you know, within an 8-hour drive or less. That's very appealing to folks. You know, everyone dreams of retiring in a tropical paradise, right? That's like on everyone's bucket list, or a lot of folks. And so there, in my opinion, is a concerted effort from the powers that be to keep those Social Security checks in the country, to keep those pension checks in the country when folks are retiring. And they're not going to do it by saying pretty please. They're going to scare the shit out of people with stuff like this. You know, taking things out of context, you know, and painting a picture that plays to people's already existing fears, right? Everyone, when I first came out here in 2017, way after either of you guys, the first question out of my mother's mouth was, you know, be careful of, you know, they're gonna harvest your organs. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. The black market doesn't exist down there. They're not gonna take you. I'm like, Jesus, Mom, what did you watch last night? This is the first question. This is the first question you asked me. I'm not gonna be all right, but this is my point. And that sort of questioning, it lasted coming from her for the first couple of years. You know, everything she looked for, she found. You know, when you're looking for these types of things, you find them. And so, you know, this article was sent to me by five different people.
Lots.
You know, so, you know, that's a microcosm of what is really going on. It's not a small thing. And so, you know, again, that's why we got on the phone. That's why we started talking about what are we going to do.
And I mean, is this guy's article going to have that far of a reach where 30 people don't come? No, but maybe it's 5.
Right.
Maybe 5 people are going to Costa Rica right now instead of Ecuador.
Yeah.
There you go.
And for what? And because Guayaquil's dangerous, and it got a bad article written about a lot of other communities that have zero problems to that extent that they're explaining in the article.
And for you, Peter, for your business, how many people have you employed here? Like a rough number on how much? And you're not the typical retiree coming here. You came here to generate jobs as well, but in a large scale. So what do you think will be your investment here in the local economy of Canoa? Just Canoa.
So, I mean, this isn't like, it is not a pretty picture right now. I mean, August is generally my busiest month by far, and we didn't do 60% of sales.
Wow.
I mean, we maybe did, about 30% of what we normally do. So, I mean, it is definitely having an effect, the negative press.
Absolutely.
Internally as well. I mean, Ecuador, this is an unprecedented time in Ecuador's strife with how they're going to figure this out on top of political transition between completely different political ideologies, from Lasso's, who's a banker, to Correa's socialist revolution.
Right.
So there's all this turmoil of, like you said, of Ecuador is figuring out who they are on the international stage with, you know, read it. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Read that book and see our nefarious ways that we've dabbled as a country of the United States down in South America, and had our hand in different elections and different ways we're steering countries in because of our interests as Americans. From Correa kicking out the United States base down here in Monza. He basically said to Obama, it's like, you get your base out unless I can have one in Miami. Okay, so Ecuador doesn't have one in Miami, so then he kicked out the United States base. That's probably going to come back now with Lasso. So there's completely different political ideologies in the last 15 years I've been here, going through that, as well as becoming a player on the international tourism map in the retirement market. American exceptionalism runs deep and through our fear campaign in almost everything we do. Our media is dominated by a small, centralized group of people with the narrative that they put out that helps out financial interests. Whether it's a military-industrial complex with these forever wars, or if it's the big pharma with our pandemics, or whatever it is, American media is bought and sold. And so in that, it's going to have some negative consequences on smaller developing nations like we're seeing right now. Is Ecuador going through a unprecedented war on drugs? Yes. Does it affect me? No, it doesn't. I mean, it's affecting my pocketbook in that people aren't coming here, but do I feel less safe? Absolutely.
Like personal?
Personally, absolutely not. Like in my community, when this article came out, several people reached out to me like, I don't feel anything that she's talking about or that article is talking about. You know, and so then, is it true? And yes, there's some problems in the big cities. There's some in any urban centers right now, almost in the world, there are some problems. Out in the country where we live, it's not as intense as maybe the sensational news is making it seem to be. And it has real consequences. So if I have 10 employees right now, if I keep having August like that, I'm gonna have to cut that down to 6 employees. That's 4 people that are going to be the breadwinners of their family. That
4 families
is going away. 4 families are not going to have food on the table. If it's one family that I have to lay off, that's too much.
Yes.
And so the world's not perfect. Ecuador's not perfect. Everybody's got their problems, but we have to shine the light on the good things. I was just back in the United States. I paid $34.50 for a hamburger combo.
Yeah.
A hamburger cheeseburger combo with cheeseburger, French fries, and a flat Pepsi. It was $34.50. That's not real. That's not sustainable.
No.
And my friends from Canada have been talking about food security for a long time, and I never knew what they meant until I paid $34.50 for a fucking cheeseburger.
It's ridiculous.
That's food security or lack thereof, And so that $34.50 down here, I could eat for a week and put gas in my car.
Kidding me?
And that's not a joke. That's not just like something. I literally came back and had $30 and said, how long could I eat? And I ate ceviche. I'm batching it right now because my wife's not here, but I ate ceviche for 5 days off $30.
There you go.
Fresh. I mean, as good as it gets.
Right.
And it would be a $40 plate at home. That is not real. And stealing because you're hungry or financial hardship because you're hungry. That's why I chose Ecuador over Costa Rica. I went to Costa Rica and I fell in love with Latin culture. Rice and beans, the Caribbean vibe, having more fun than you're working. Yeah, pura vida. But those guys, there's not a lot of food there.
No.
They're hungry.
Yeah.
And especially on the Caribbean side, when the rainy season happens, those guys get hungry and they get steely and it gets a little sad over there.
I lived there.
Yeah.
I almost lived there.
Cahuita and those spots over there. Ecuador is not hungry. Nobody here is hungry. You have to be a moron to not get food. I'm not kidding. You can wait on the beach and a dead fish will float up, and you can eat the fish
and the coconut will
fall on your head. There's food coming everywhere. So
that's true.
Is it perfect? No, but can I eat? Yeah, and can I eat for a long time? It looks like it. I mean, Ecuador is like being in Montana in the 80s. You can ride in the back of your truck. Yes. The cops aren't going to beat you up or shoot you.
Right.
They're going to try to help you more than anything. I'm not taking anything out of the cops of the States. They have a hard job. But, when I get a cop behind me in Ecuador, I don't panic.
Right.
A cop behind me in the States, I'm like, oh no.
Right.
Even a speeding ticket or whatever else up there, going to court and all the rigmarole.
$300.
Yeah, whatever it is down here, it's a little more relaxed.
No, it's a lot more.
And it's hard to put a price on that. Like when you're talking about 100,000 Americans are going to die from fentanyl overdoses this year. And I don't know if it's being in my 40s or what it is, but when I go back home, my peer group is exploding. They're all getting divorced. There's suicide that has affected my family and my friends now. And there's no light at the end of that tunnel. And whether, like you said, whether you're left or right, Republican or Democrat, whatever it is, there's a general sense of unease when you go to the grocery store and you can't walk out of there without spending $300. You can't fill up your car for $100 anymore. You got to make $100,000 in Colorado to be broke right now. That's not real. And that whole level of stress, now we're talking about cancers and diabetes. And I mean, the diet of an average American is a joke. It's preservative food, eating out of a box. Just quickly, I'll just tell one more story about the American lifestyle. I was short on dinner, coming back from fishing, and my parents had already eaten, so I had to go out and catch some food, trying to find a fast food place. I could not find a fast food place at dinner time with less than 20 cars in it.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's what America's eating. They're eating McDonald's and Wendy's,
Yeah.
and just crap food, and in mass,
Yeah.
and in their car. You know, Latinas, they sit down, they make a point to have a meal with
Go
their
home for lunch every
families,
day.
Yeah,
3 or 4
absolutely.
generations. You know,
This is
what I
a
mean?
family-centered
It's a family
society.
thing around
Yes.
food and wellness and
Absolutely.
gratitude, and it's not just stuff. Some French fries in you in the car on your way to your second job.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Why Ecuador is so popular among expats is the quality of food. Yeah. I mean, what you said.
Yeah.
You go to the supermarket unless I don't know there is a pandemic happening. You always find food all
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, fresh.
It's not like no, this is a season for this. No, mostly you can find
Yeah.
all the foods
Yeah.
the whole year.
For me, the sense of community, that family gathering around the table. For example, my wife and I, not every weekday, but at least half, if not the majority, we go home for lunch.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we sit down around the table. Our daughter, 2.5 years old, she joins
Your
us.
wife is Ecuadorian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For those who don't know, Amber is Mantense. And, during holidays, during birthdays, to her parents' house, or they come over ours now, the feeling I get when there's 15 people in my house, it reminds me of my childhood in the 80s growing up in New York.
Mhm.
That does not exist. It stopped in like the late 80s, early 90s. Everybody just went their own way, divorces, this, that, jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And, that sort of, sense of community, it takes a village type thing, it exists here. And it's not like they're trying to keep it alive. It's
Mhm.
just the way it is.
It is.
And for me, that's huge. That has a trickling effect into all other facets of life, where the family is the most important aspect, and then everything else is sort of like extra. And the fact that you can, like you said, you can eat. You don't need to, grind to make $100,000 just to be broke. It's similar in New York. New York's 150 maybe.
Yeah, or more even.
Right.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have a career that just put me on a path where plus my side businesses that put me on a path to get out here in my late 30s, right? And with the intention of staying here and growing a business here and growing a family here if possible. I had written off parenthood by 36, which is when I came out here, when I started looking out here, when I met her, and when I met Ambar. And at that point in time, I was like, all right, parenthood is not going to happen for me. It's just out the window. I missed that boat. And then I realized here it's well within reason. When we got pregnant during the pandemic, locked in our house, and couldn't have been a better time because for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I had one job to dote on her every need.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a miracle, really. I felt it was a blessing. There was a lot of bad going on in the world, and a lot of bad happened to my family up north. A lot of bad happened to our family down here. But, we had a beautiful pregnancy, and when it was time to give birth, $1,000, $1,200, and we had, not including the $40 a month for our, visits to the OBGYN, but still, tally that up. 40 times 9.
How much that will be the bill in the US to
40,000.
40,000? And you can buy the house here for $40,000?
Right. That's the other thing. $40,000 is you could buy a piece of land here. I don't know if you're gonna you could buy a house here for $40K. It wouldn't be the ideal house for
You can see through the walls.
Right. But a quality home here, 3-bedroom, 2 floors in a beautiful community with amenities and security and close to the city, 100K,
Yeah.
80 to 110K, unheard of up north. Unheard of.
Yeah.
Unheard of. But that's let me just tell you something. The most unsafe I've felt here in Ecuador has been because of expats. Okay? I'm not gonna name names. I can tell you I've been directly threatened by expats from North Carolina and Florida who didn't like the way I was doing business, and they were trying to bully me. They literally stormed into my office, almost knocked over a pregnant girl who was working for me. She's still downstairs, Andrea, and started threatening me and I had my camera rolling. I have that footage. I've never aired it, and I'm probably never gonna. But I knew they were coming based on the way they were threatening me on the phone, and I knew this person's personality, and I met many people like him in New York and in the United States. Bully, and the way he was speaking to me on the phone, I knew where he was. His office was not far from mine. I knew he was coming. I set up my camera. I called my father in New York. I said, I need you on the phone as a witness. I'm 99% sure this guy's gonna come into my office right now. And lo and behold, within a minute or two, speakerphone, camera rolling, boom. No knock.
No?
He just literally fucking threw the door open, and Andrea was sitting right there. The door slammed against the wall right behind her, and she was 8 months pregnant. I'll never forget that. That was the first time and he brought an Ecuadorian with him who was a tough dude, and he literally stood by the door as if to say, no one's leaving. Like, you ever see Bronx Tale, Chaz Palminteri? Now nobody leaves. You ever see that? When the bikers came into the bar?
Totally.
Right. So that's what I said. This guy's literally got his foot by the door. He's not going to let us leave. This guy's acting like a tough guy. I was like, we're by appointment only. You have to come back at 4:00. My heart was beating out of my chest.
Yeah, because you never know what's going to happen.
That was one. Two, recently we had renters, because we run a luxury real estate business, rentals and sales. And we do rentals to expats as well as Ecuadorians, right? Locals and extranjeros. And we had these two renters, one really, who were referred to us by another agent, moved into a home, refused to pay rent from the first day, had paid 2 months security deposit, and continuously sent us videos and photos of things breaking in the house as an excuse to not pay the rent, which, that doesn't fly, first of all. Second of all, came to my office. You don't know who I am. One's from Westchester, right? The other one's from Miami. The Miami guy's like 6 and change and, heavy set-ish. The other dude's my height, but big. They're in my office, throwing their weight around. First things out of their mouth, you don't know who the fuck I am. Give me what I want or else. And I'm like, bro, where do you think you are right now? You're not in Westchester, man. Get out. Pay me the rent. He gave us $300 that day. The rent was $800. We never saw another dime from them again, and they tortured our lives for 6 years. He threatened us several times. Then after we finally got them out of the house, which we were able to do without having to, get violent, but we had to basically bring the cops. We had mediations at the Chamber of Commerce that were in our favor at one point. Was in their favor at first, but then they canceled the change. That we had to go back. Got them out of the house. A couple weeks later, Amber and I weren't even in the office. We have cameras. We have evidence. This happened. And the guy comes in, the smaller dude, with his wife, who's Ecuadorian, and starts threatening my workers, saying, wow, this is a really nice fucking office. It'd be nice. It would be a shame to lose it. It'd be nice to hang on to it. Like, this guy, what does he guy think he is? What does he think he is?
Yeah.
But still, those were the 2 times since I've been here, 6 years now, where I was like, I gotta look over my shoulder, lock the door, type thing, right? Expats, not Ecuadorians.
Yeah. And of course, it's just like, it's a matter of keeping your business in the right path. And it's just like you don't get in trouble with the drug cartels.
Right.
It's
what do they say? If you sleep with dogs, you're gonna get fleas.
Yeah, but for me, what I'm trying to say is you need to have enough common sense to, if we don't want to be associated or being a victim of drug cartels, don't do business with them. I don't know any expats from my clients coming to start doing business with them.
Right.
If you don't do business with them, you're fine.
Right.
You're fine. And that's it. And then, you have to lock your car, or there's some places in Canada you don't have to have an alarm system for
I
your
don't
car.
have keys for my house. I've never locked my door.
Well, people, I think we have to edit this part.
There's a bunch of different ways to live down here. You know, and if you're gonna not involve yourself in the community, if you're not going to learn Spanish, then I can imagine that it's scary. You probably do want to lock yourself in
for sure.
or something. You know?
For
but
sure.
if you're actively participating in the community and trying to be a human and contribute to the society, then you're going to have just a normal life down here.
And you'll have friends, and you'll have connections, and with healthy
and
people.
you can make a real difference
Healthy
down here. Like, we don't make a lot of money, but we have a big impact. We put several kids through school. We've raised money through friends and family from back home through a foundation that an expat in Kanoa has started the only private school in Kanoa. So my wife runs the foundation, helps do the payroll and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of expats jumping in and helping with that.
Okay.
All of it is donor based. It's 100% private school. So, there's someone shining the light. There's always going to be bullshit and bad mess, and you just got to look around for people that are just trying to do good stuff, And so there's a bunch of good stuff going around.
Right.
There's, you can spend your time screaming about whatever you want to scream about, or you can just go to work and try to make a positive impact, And so I think it's, to your story of part of life is you're going to bump into people that are weird or whatever you're going to have conflict with, but your choice is how you react to that and how you carry on or how much weight you give it. And so to a certain extent, it's just down here we're in the spotlight a little bit more because we're different, because we're having more of a financial impact, especially in a smaller community like I come from, which means you have to be more of an example. You have to tread lighter. You have to take your responsibility and your spotlight a little bit more seriously, because you are going to have a bigger impact on things.
And another thing that this is a general call for everyone, is like, you don't know what you don't know.
Oh yeah.
So when you're coming to Ecuador, there are a few things that you don't know, and you have to accept. You have to be humble enough to accept that there are certain things that you don't know. So when you're coming here and you start bragging that you had a construction company, or you had a real estate company, or you had a multi-million-dollar business, or you work for Ted Turner, or whatever you work, but there are certain things that you don't know here in Ecuador, and you have to be humble enough to accept that you don't know things. And then from that perspective, you integrate better to the local culture. So I'm pretty sure that you have done that. I mean, there are things that you didn't know, now you know.
Yeah, you just got, we didn't know Spanish, and so you got to just learn, and so that's, I think, as you get older, you stop learning stuff because you know everything already, right? So you got to stay curious, and but anytime you're going to a foreign anything, you want to be able to communicate, right? And so just, to your point of how good Ecuadorians are, you don't have to be good at Spanish. I butcher Spanish.
I start everything with disculpe mi español.
I'm terrible at it, but I get through it. I try, and they can tell that
and
I'm
you have
trying to have
friends.
fun with it. Yeah, and I'm trying. I make fun of myself first.
No English speaker.
Yeah, and so you got to just be humble enough, like you said, to your point. Have some humility about yourself to, that it's not good or bad. It's different.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest problem with expats is they're judging things and they live in Comparisonville.
Yeah,
it's not. It's just a different way of doing things.
No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And just part of this discussion is, as in a North American standpoint, it comes from a place of fear because you fear things that you don't know. And so as a culture, we're not very good at traveling. Like Europe, you're expected to travel. And for us to go to Colorado to Kansas, in Europe would be going from like Switzerland to Italy, right? Different culture and all that kind of stuff. So it's easier on a geographical level. At the same time, America comes from a place of fear. Americans are run by fear, generally. Okay, that's what sells and that kind of stuff. And so that leads to a good or bad. It doesn't lead to a different way of doing things, And so just in that alone, things are not better or worse. They're just a different way to skin a cat, And so. And to also realize that we are very fortunate to come from a country that measures success according to GDP and not on calorie intake per day.
Right.
How much food do you get in a day is a whole paradigm shift that we have no idea about, thankfully. And we're living in a country that's
we're willfully ignorant, I think.
Yeah, thank God we don't know what it's like. Just because of where we're from, we hit the lucky sperm jackpot. Right. And so that alone is a whole paradigm shift that you have to be sensitive to, because they're coming from a standpoint of feeding themselves sometimes, not whether they're going to put their kids through college.
Right.
You know, which is a whole paradigm shift of like where we are so fortunate to be where we're from, that we can come across as arrogant just because of our, just because of the chance that we got. You know, when it's not necessarily, it's going to take some attention to bring our humility down to a level that matches the kind of challenges of poverty and a developing nation has just to make it and feed their kids. You know, so just that alone is tricky. Tricky as an expat, I think, in any culture.
There's also something to be said about for those of us expats who it doesn't work out for whatever reason. Bad relationships, failed business, failed this, whatever. Bad choices, bad luck. There's a common denominator in their stories a lot of times.
I know what you're going to say.
That's
I can read that.
That if you out there are a recipient of a story of an expat who how do you say that? They're no longer an expat. They're back home. They went back to the States or wherever. There's an underlying bitterness and inability. It's that American exceptionalism reversed. Like
this
it's
is good.
internal. It's a cognitive dissonance where I am not at fault.
Yeah.
And nothing I did, it brought me back home. It was all external influences and variables that I had no control over. Yeah. And so, you know.
No, I mean, the victims don't make it here. If you're a victim, you're not going to make it here because life's tough. You got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
You have to teach yourself a new language.
Yeah.
And look, not every single Ecuadorian is this Mary Poppins, Mother Teresa kind of thing. There's nefarious people in Ecuador too. And so there's that level of, you know, getting to know the culture.
Yes.
You know, like, will they really double charge you on a bus? Yes, that guy will really double charge you on a bus. It's $1. Do you really care? Do you really care if it's $1 or $1.25? Obviously you do. So those little fights you want to pick through
That might not be. Ecuador might not be for you.
Yeah. So I mean, you just gotta pick your fights. Like, you know, it's amazing to see wealthy Americans come down here and beat somebody up over 50 cents.
Right.
So what do you care? Why do you care about that?
It's a little disgusting. It's a little disheartening.
Yeah. You know,
It's disheartening. I've had some interesting conversations with folks that, you know, I just can't find anyone who speaks English.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. You're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Like, learn Spanish.
It's just a culture that's used to being catered to. Americans are used to everything now, the best, fastest.
Oh my God, you just reminded me of a
you know, that's
instant
not
gratification. There was a Washington Mutual. Remember that bank? There was a billboard on the BQE. I used to drive past it all the time. I thought their slogan was genius. Instant gratification is getting what you want now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's so New York. It's so America.
Yeah, of course. But, well, I think we're living in a society that is moving towards that direction because, I mean, I'm speaking about the youngest, the younger, where instant gratification is a thing right now. It's a thing through Instagram, Facebook. People are waiting for likes and all that. But something that I wanted to say, and you were talking about this, is whenever you leave a place, you are always going to blame the place that you're living. Always. Now the place, the security was bad, the food was bad, people was bad. But we're again, for being humble. You're not humble enough to say, you know, I didn't have the skills to navigate and survive the Ecuadorian culture. You're never going to say that. You're going to blame always the place. And it was the weather. It was the rocks. You always can find the internet connection or...
The mosquitoes. No.
Of course.
I mean, you're just defending yourself to the haters because before you moved here, everybody was saying, you're not going to make it down there.
Yeah.
Right. What are you doing? You're crazy.
It's so scary. It's like, I'm not going to, you know, but you have that kind of just ignorance naysaying you. And so when you come down here and you get your ass kicked, you know you just got to go home to that, like, I told you so shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Which that probably happens to those people over and over and over and over and over again in their lives. It's just that Ecuador shined a really bright light on that thing, for them. On a financial scale, you had to move your home, all this stuff. It looks really traumatic when that same kind of inability to manage conflict was probably happening in their lives over and over and over again, And if you can't handle it up there, you cannot handle it down here. We see that all the time, like the lady.
Yeah.
It's the classic, just blow it up as you're leaving, burn the bridge down as you're leaving.
Yeah.
It's like, what if you ever have to come back? And face those people that you just threw so far under the bus, it's like, it's just a lack of class, at the end of the day, I think, when it comes down to just being a sore loser, it doesn't always work. And it's nobody's fault. Shit, it's hard down here.
Yeah.
You got to have a little bit of tenacity.
From my perspective, I think I have compassion for them. What I mean with this is I'm so sorry that it was a bad experience. And I'm truly honest saying this. Ecuador is not for everyone. The same as the US is not for everyone. Colombia is not for everyone. But probably for the people behind the article, Ecuador was not for them. So a little bit of compassion I can feel for them because they probably came with a dream, with an expectation.
Yeah, but they didn't have to go to the Wall Street Journal with it.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, come on.
But that's the point.
Come on.
You don't have to do this big thing. But it's just a matter. What I'm trying to say here is that for everyone else, just come and try, live for 6 months, and then you will see before judging through 1 or 2 pages Wall Street Journal article. Calm yourself, and then you can have your own opinion.
And here's what else we'll do for you.
Good.
We'll keep having interviews with expats right here.
Yeah, perfect.
We'll get more anecdotal stories so that we have so many anecdotal stories we can convert it into data that tells the narrative we want.
Perfect.
Everybody's got their story, man. It's not perfect here, but it's not as scary as it seems in the news, I don't think.
Right. No, you're right. I agree.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but at the same time, it's, and I think that's a story, a bigger story. It's just the media interpretations of things in general, let alone how it affects and trickles down to like little communities. So
perfect. Yeah. No, I know. I totally agree with that. That's why I'm very grateful that you have accepted this invitation to come and share. For someone who has been living here 15 years, not someone who just got here. And you have been through things, ups and downs, especially the earthquake. And if we're going to talk about the earthquake, I think we need another episode.
For sure.
But for now, I think the message is clear, and for me to close my I'm talking like a lawyer right now, but but for me it's just like come and try yourself, right. Ecuador. You will see if you like it or not. I'm sure that you will like it because Ecuador is a country that it has a lot of opportunities. Opportunities in terms of a healthy life, the people, and the weather. It's amazing. I think, I don't know what the weather is like right now in Colorado.
It's getting cold.
It's getting cold.
Oh, yeah.
Snow's coming.
Get ready.
Yeah. So right now it's sunny out there. And
I was at the beach this weekend, man.
Yeah.
It's good.
I don't know about you guys.
And
I do know what's going on up north. They're, New York is gearing up for probably another rough winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've touched on enough.
Mm-hmm.
Let's end it with I don't know what. How do you end something like this?
Some final words for our guests today about Ecuador.
Just come on down. There's lots to see. Galapagos is cool. Amazon's amazing. The Andes are cool. We have 5 regions here to the coast. Food.
Flights from Manta to Galapagos now are open direct.
Yep.
First in the history.
Yep. And then it's cheap to travel and see some stuff here. You won't find a $35 hamburger down here, I don't think, even if you try.
No.
Food's great, easy to travel, lots to see, good people. Yeah, come on down and try it out for yourself.
US dollar.
US dollar.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. I like the life. I mean, honestly, 43 years old in my life, and I was living 15 years of going back and forth. This is the first time when I felt so secure in my decision to be not living in the United States. Not necessarily that it's in Ecuador, just that it's not there.
Yeah.
And I'm happy we hit it out of the park here. Ecuador has been good to us, and we're going to continue to try to keep making an impact down here.
Yeah, I can't. I'm 43 too.
It's a good age.
It is a good age. It's done. It's been,
I'm
it's been good.
32.
No, Ecuador's has been good to me also. If it wasn't for Ecuador, I wouldn't have a family, literally.
Okay,
You know,
that's beautiful.
I owe my existence to Ecuador at this point. It's the best decision I ever made.